King Tut was pharaoh of Egypt for 10 years until he died. He broke one leg twice. Cleopatra was pharaoh until 50 to 30 BC. Cleopatra died by a snake bite. The Egyptians used temples as churches. Their temples/churches were dirty and had no walls. Compared to ours, they weren't nice at all. Now that you know about temples, here is an interesting fact. The Temple of Hathor is one of the most common temple to go to pray in. King Tut was a pharaoh. His real name was Tutankhamun. The Tutankhamun's tomb is cursed. When people went into the tomb, they either got very sick and some people died. Another thing that happened was the electricity went out. Also, the bird was eaten.
Ka and Ba are spirits that take people to the afterlife. Ba is a bird with a human head. Ka is an invisible twin.
The Nile River flows all through parts of Africa. One of those countries is Egypt. The Nile River floods each year. About 2.5 centimeters fall each year. There is life next to Nile because that is where farmers like to grow their crops there because there is water.
Egyptians had gods and goddesses for everything. They had 2,000 names for all the gods and goddesses. Sekhmet was the goddess of war. Animals in Egypt are very important because people worshipped them, and lots of gods had animal heads. They were also very useful in everyday life. Egyptian writing is called hieroglyphics. 3200 BC was when hieroglyphics first started, with around 700 or 800 signs. Hieroglyphics means picture writing. Also, hieroglyphics means holy writing in Greek. Hiero stands for holy, and glyphics stands for writing. Medicine in Egypt is so much more different than in the USA. People in Egypt thought when you got sick, it was from spirits. They got in your body and made you sick. So the Egyptians used spells as medicine to get rid of the evil spirits.
The Sphinx is a statue that guards the tombs. It has a head of a human and a body of a crouching lion. The Sphinx is the biggest and oldest statue in the world.
People in Egypt were mummified or preserved so that the Ka and Ba would recognize them so they can go to the afterlife.
The Egyptians believed that people lived forever. They believed that when someone died, they would go to the afterlife. That was what every Egyptian wanted. But you had to earn living forever. You had to be judged by the God of the dead and gods and goddesses of the afterlife to live in the afterlife. Daily life in Egypt was different than our lives. One sport that the Egypts played was hippo hunting. It was very dangerous but very popular. Ramadan is a very important holiday to the Egyptians, and it is also an Islamic holiday. Ramadan can last up to 11 or 12 days, and the last day of Ramadan you fast. At the end of Ramadan, you party, dance, and do all sorts of fun things, and at the end of fasting, it is feast time for dinner. The Rosetta Stone is a black granite slab of rock that has 3 languages on it. The 3 languages are Greek, hieroglyphics, and Egyptian. Without the Rosetta Stone, no one would know what hieroglyphics or the Egyptian languages meant.
A pharaoh was an Egyptian king.
A pharaoh's job is to make sure that the people make money and make sure that the people are safe.
Clothing in Egypt is very important. Men and women wore wigs. Some wigs were long and some wigs were short. Girls wore pigtails and boys shaved their hair. Egyptians' inventions are very, very different. Some of their inventions are the papyrus for writing, a water clock, and ramps and levers for building.
Canopic jars are an important part of mummification. Mummification is what they would do to the Egyptian rulers called pharaohs. Each jar had a head of a god. The jars had the names of the pharaohs and hieroglyphics on it. Hieroglyphics are an ancient writing the Egyptians did. Gods had different responsibilities and had different parts in Egyptians' lives. Egyptians worshipped gods in temples. The pyramids were built as tombs for pharaohs. The largest pyramid, which is in the middle of the pyramid I drew, is the Great Pyramid. It took 30 years to build the Great Pyramid.
In Egypt, the farming was very important. If they didn't farm, they would have no food. The Nile helped a lot with watering their crops.
The hierarchy system was made to help the pharaoh rule Egypt. How the hierarchy system worked was that the least important people were at the bottom and the most important people were at the top. For example, the pharaoh was at the top and the slaves were at the bottom.